Good afternoon. Thanks for joining. My name is John Ferrioli. I'm with a company called Utopia, and we are a data solutions provider focusing on managing data as an asset. And I've been asked to present some ideas about master data management. And first and foremost, I think we can all appreciate there is the delineation between master data management, the product from SAP and other vendors, and the process. So what I hope to share with you today is just some ideas about how master data management processes and frameworks can be incorporated into your businesses to achieve a business result. Managing data as an asset is critical, so hopefully we'll share some ideas about implementation ideas, best practices, leading practices, and ultimately some of the gotchas. One of the things I want to share and recognize is thank you for joining me today, but also thank the virtual audience who's joining us remotely. And I'll dig in first with a framework. Now, when we position master data management within our organizations, we have to look at the business case tied to kicking off a project like this. One of the ways we try to help companies build a business case is to map into the decision making or the process optimization within their organization. So if your CFO is looking to reduce days sales outstanding because every 1 day of reduction translates to 10 to 12 to $15 million in operating capital, what I want to do is almost reverse engineer from the activity into the data, into the foundation. And so I want to have an appreciation of what do my invoices look like? What are my customers seeing when I invoice them? Are they going to pay their invoice in a timely manner? If I have invoicing errors, ship the product to the wrong location, to a null location, or to a client that doesn't have the proper tax ID, the chances are of that client paying the invoice in a timely manner is not really going to happen. They'll call up, your accounts receivable people will come in, they'll say, why haven't you paid? And you say, well, short text, long text, you shipped the wrong product to the wrong location, to the wrong person, and by the way, my tax ID and my discount is wrong. Getting master data right and transactional data right translates to operational excellence. So the argument to the CFO who's making the decisions at the apex of this framework and operational excellence around reducing day sales outstanding is simply, let's make sure the information on the invoice is accurate. Let's remediate that rather than at a transactional level, right? I'll fix your discount, I'll correct your tax ID, I'll correct your bill to ship to. I'll do it right at a foundational master data level. So our approach is that your business applications and your reporting tools are only as good as the data that they execute against. And 80% of a business process is master data. So we want to tie business process to our data processes. And the other thing I'd recommend is looking at data as an asset for the life cycle, from its point of creation all the way through end of life. Okay, so there's a lot of buzz and excitement about HANA. We don't care about the report in the master data world. What we care about is, will you bet your job on the report? HANA's great, but if your data's bad, you're making bad decisions faster. And we want to eliminate that, right? And with mobility, we can make bad decisions anywhere in the world. So let's get the foundation right, and that's really what we're going to talk about today. Structured data versus unstructured data. The good news is, from a product set, you can handle both in the centralized repository. The thing that we like to get recognized about, or what we talk to our customers about, is not so much implementing MDM, the tool. That's relatively the easy part, but getting the data model right. Understanding the entity relationship of the data. Understanding how the data will be consumed by enterprise applications, SAP and non-SAP. Understand what the reporting requirements are, the integration components. What business problem are you trying to solve? Is it food traceability for FDA compliance within the CPG arena? Or is it unique device identifier for medical devices? Are you trying to reduce inventory, right? Well, you can't reduce inventory if you're buying the same products, duplicate material masters, from 8 different vendors for 8 different prices, right? It's data structure. So we spend a lot of time on the data model and the entity relationship and the hierarchy, because that's the core of MDM. That's the process you need to go through to make the product work. Implementing MDM is easy. You can stand it up really fast. In a previous life, here at SAP, I work for Utopia now, but at SAP, I was the global lead for the rollout of MDM. And it wasn't the what is MDM, but it's the how. So as we dig in a little bit deeper, here's another framework for you. Foundational components. I tried to make this font as small as possible. But there are foundational components to MDM beyond just standing up the tool. We want to look at a few dimensions. Governance. Who owns the data? What are the business rules associated with the master data? How is that data governed? What are your data processes? What is the workflow related to creation of a vendor master? What about a material master? What about the compliance team, the logistics folks? A very famous case study is at ConAgra. They had the dimensions, weight, dimensions, and gross shipping of tomato juice, which was inaccurate data in production ECC. And what they found is that once they got the data right, that mass, those dimensional elements of the master data around their product and how they distribute and ship it was erroneous. And that translates to the pack out of those shipping containers, that they could actually pack out a full shipping container once they had the right data. Instead of 19 pallets, they could put 20 pallets. The economic impact of that for logistics, shipping, and distribution was in the millions of dollars. So always, 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 from a process perspective, look to the economic impact of data. Other dimensions are your data quality metrics. How are you going to tell an executive that you're actually delivering value? The sustainability of master data management as a process, right? We want to get spend optimization. If I have duplicate vendors, if I don't understand the minority relationship for diversity spend for compliance, if you're in pharmaceutical and you don't understand the requirements for the Sunshine Act, which is physician spend management, this physician tied to this hospital, tied to this doctor's group, tied to this university, right? All that lineage to solve a compliant-based driver, because you don't want to be fined by the FDA if you're dealing with that particular industry. So understanding architecture and standards is another dimension of master data processes that have to be brought up front. If you don't have that, what you're doing is building a house on the fly. And if anyone's done a home construction programs, anybody raise their hand, home construction programs? And you're in the middle of the build, the last thing you want to do is, oh, can I move the window over here? Well, you can, but it's going to kill you. It's going to be very timely and very expensive. So understanding the architecture, understanding the data standards, how you determine the integrity of the data for the long haul, and then that management against what you measure in establishing your data quality metrics, right? How many duplicates are acceptable? What is the completion rate? Can I accept the tax ID? That's a blank field if it's a mandatory field. Can I accept 9999X for a tax ID? Right? So data quality metrics help you determine data quality that's measurable to go forward from a master data management process. And then finally is the tool. I'm very fond of NetWeaver MDM. I'm very fond of the EIM platform from SAP. They work as advertised. Doing things unnatural with a tool that it shouldn't be doing, is not the best fit. You don't want to hammer a nail with the butt end of a screwdriver. You can, but it's not the best tool. So understanding the tool dimension and where that fits in with your master data processes, will the tool be able to execute your process? These are all dimensions of a framework foundationally for implementing MDM. The other thing I want to emphasize is a reference architecture that is leverageable and scalable for your enterprise. If you walk down the halls of IT, how many folks in IT here? Will I find, if I walk down the halls, a large engineering drawing of your physical network infrastructure? Will I find your SAP roadmap and your SAP landscape on a big engineering drawing, right? Do you have your data roadmap? We want to suggest to you that your business processes, from a reference architecture, business processes aligned with your data processes. If you're rolling out CRM, what is the entity relationship of customer? What is the hierarchy? What is a customer at your business? Right? Are you using sales bombs in the United States, but finished goods in Europe, and they're the same thing? Understanding that data model is key to the process of managing master data. Make sense? So I want to have an inextricable link between systems, applications, business processes, and data processes. And that is a four-square reference architecture. Now, we strengthen this, and you get the buy-in, because MDM by itself as a project, that's an event. This is master data management. This is 80% of your business processes. Getting it right, kind of, doesn't work. It has to be sustained. So you want to look at what are the enterprise objectives. Am I trying to get 360-degree customer profitability analysis? Am I trying to do better new product introduction, cross-selling and upselling? If I am, I better understand my customer buying behavior. But I also better understand what my material master, my finished goods, is going to represent and how it's reflected to the customer and market. I want to look at industry drivers. I talked a little bit about compliance when you're doing MDM processes. And on top of that, I want to appropriate industry standards into the data model. So anyone in oil and gas, ISO 14224 is an industry standard for oil and gas. Works great in oil and gas, not so much in CPG, right? When you're doing MRO materials for aviation, it's a totally different game. So understanding the industry standards and best practices from a framework perspective says, look, we don't have to invent everything here. Let's leverage leading practices. The other thing you want to dimensionalize is the ultimate program planning, because this is the intersection between the IT team who wants to implement ECC with the data team that needs to ensure that we understand the intersection of data to the business process and execution and how it's going to be consumed and distributed. That's key. We did an ASUG study when I was at SAP. They do it every year. They said, when you do a process improvement program at SAP, what percentage of the time do you have disruption, delayed go live, lack of trust in the system that's related to data? You know what the survey came back with? 93%. So we know the train is coming, and we want to get ahead of it. So if you're implementing ECC or any SAP module, it's always the data. It's not the calculator. It's the fat fingers that give you the wrong result. So this reference architecture is one dimension, intersection business process with data process. The next is best practices for enterprise data management. Now here, this is from the ASUG community. This is not from Utopia, this is from you all. And ASUG has a data governance specialty interest group, and a few years back, I was at SAP, and there's a lot of other folks contributing to this, hundreds of people contributing. These are the leading practices for managing data. It's yet another framework, okay? But these are guidelines, and really what it starts with is the architecture, IT. Who has access? Who has control mechanisms? How is the data created? Are we going with MDG? Are we doing with a portal front end? When you create a record that says 154 St. John's Street, how do you abbreviate Saint and Street? So those standards dimension come into play. Governance, policy, procedure. This is where you say, well, we're really trying to reduce our inventory because it's 20% carrying costs and we've got 10 billion in inventory. That's some real money. So understand that it's not just the data people making the argument, but my executive sponsor who's trying to achieve a business goal. And the only way you achieve a business goal or optimize a process is consume good data. Let me go back one, sorry. Data quality, we spoke about metrics. This is just simple management 101, which is what's acceptable, completeness of the record, duplicates of the record, fulfillment of the record, other data quality metrics. So I can scorecard and measure myself. Information steward is an excellent complement to the MDM process, so you can look at metadata and lineage and get a total understanding of what happens if I make changes and what's the integrity of the data. And that's that whole will you bet your job on the report. If your data quality metrics say that the data is not there, if you go through an M&A scenario, you want to align that data to get the economies of scale that M&A will bring. Last is change management and deployment, which is this is people and process. The tool does what the tool does. This is a people process issue. What we try to do is orchestrate these frameworks from a best practice perspective between a reference architecture and best practices for governing and managing data. And what you do, or what we submit you do, is deploy these frameworks as best practice with customer master. Then you want to get spend analytics, vendor master. Then I want to reduce inventory, material master. And then I want to get location data or general ledger, chart of account, you name it. So these frameworks help you scale, build repeatable processes with your IT partner, and they give you process discipline so that you're not in the 93% of SAP customers who have project disruption, delayed go-lives, and budget overruns due to data, right? We know the problem's data, we want to get ahead of it. From a Utopia perspective, not to give you a commercial, when we implement MDM or MDG, right, we spend an inordinate, in a very fast and low-cost way, time understanding the data model, understanding the consumption model, understanding the strategy and the roadmap of where you're going as a company. Again, you're aligning MDM to the business priorities. And so much of our time is around strategy and roadmap. Governance and stewardship has to be sustainable beyond just the event or the project. And we want to move from a project sense to a process sense. It's a change management exercise as much as an implementation. This dimension of standards, we talked about how critical it is to understand how your data is going to be represented and your blueprint. So again, if I'm going to build a house, I want a good architect. I want to align that architect with a vision of my dream house, and I want a good builder. But look at our deploy phase. Relatively thin compared to the level of effort up front of getting it right the first time. Because with MDM, because it's so critical, because it's only the core referential data that all your apps and all of your reporting tools and all the decisions and competitive advantages that you have are made against, you have to get it right the first time. And that's kind of the thing I was going back to with the Gartner recognition. So implementing MDM, in our appreciation from a product perspective, is relatively an event. But you have to look at it as a process. And so understanding your organization's ability to execute is critical simply because, and I'll share an example, I coach my son's football team. I started when he was 5. He's now 12, he's in middle school. So my coaching careers are over. When they were 5, we taught them the fundamentals of the game. When he became 12, we started getting, and 11, 10, 11, 12, they started throwing the ball. You can't have a 5-year-old throw a football unless you want a Kodak moment. But the reality of it is the organization's ability to execute MDM processes is directly and specifically critical to your success. Do not run plays like telling a 5-year-old football team to throw the ball like an NFL quarterback, because you're never going to get there. So saying, oh, we're going to get Six Sigma for data quality, oh my God, why are we doing this? because I read an article in People magazine about Six Sigma and that seemed pretty cool. No, look at the economic value of getting the data right and understand the organization, the people's ability to execute architecturally, what tools and processes in place to automate and streamline data creation. Once you get the data right in MDM, you have to make sure that the next data set coming in with MM01 and MM03 is standardized and process-centric for data creation. Otherwise, you're reinventing the wheel again by putting bad data into a central repository. So organizational ability to execute, you have to understand where you're at. And we like to scorecard against the classic people, process, and technology dimension. And what we try to do more than anything else, I'm out of time, is look at multiple dimensions and scorecard, frankly, where you are today, where you need to be, and what the economic impact. We will achieve spend optimization. We will reduce inventory by $100 million. We will lower our day sales outstanding to get $10 million in working capital per day. We will be compliant to the FDA. All of these desired targets need to be mapped and measured, just like you measure data quality. We want to understand the continuum of an organizational maturity so that my 5-year-old son at one point couldn't throw a football. Now his team at 12 is throwing the football. And when they get to the high school level, the sophistication of the plays that they run will be executed because of the maturity of the team. And that analogy maps to your data governance organization. It has to be aligned to business process and data process. And IT is a critical play, and business is a critical play. But you're curing and working for the organizational goals. That's my time. I certainly invite any questions or further discussion at the Partner Center. One other commercial, if you will. At the Utopia booth, we're having a party tonight. It's an EIM community party. It's going to be at the Peabody, right across the street. It'll be a lot of fun, but there'll be a community from the ASUG folks all around data governance, all around EIM, all around MDM. And it's more of a networking event. But they'll have NASCAR simulators and IndyCar simulators. It'll be a lot of fun. And I have an invitation if you'd like to join us at the Partner Center for any Q&A. Thank you so much for your time. I'm a bit over. Thank you very much.